I stood at the altar with the love of my life. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my ears. After we exchanged vows, everyone applauded. My husband, Grant, leaned in and kissed me softly. The music swelled. His eyes shone with pure joy. As the ceremony wrapped, I saw my mother-in-law approaching. She had on a tight smile, but something about her stare made my stomach twist. I expected a hug or a simple congratulations. Instead, she leaned in so close I could smell the floral perfume on her wrist. She whispered, "You'll never be good enough for my son. You're trash and white." My entire body went cold. The words stuck in my mind like pins. I could hardly breathe. Outside, people were cheering, taking pictures, throwing flower petals, but inside I was trembling. I managed not to cry. No one else heard what she said, not even Grant. She pulled away, her face smug. Then she turned to the crowd, arms outstretched, playing the gracious mother of the groom. I forced a trembling smile as Grant rushed over. "Ready, love?" he asked. I swallowed my shock. "Yes," I answered, my voice unsteady. I just married into fire. I tried to forget her cruel words as we entered the reception hall. Music thumped, champagne flowed, and guests laughed under the glow of crystal chandeliers. For a moment, I let myself believe the day could still be perfect. Then my mother-in-law stepped to the microphone. "Good evening, everyone," she began, feigning warmth. "I'm overjoyed to welcome this new addition to our family. After all, not everyone gets a chance to marry up." A wave of unease rippled through the crowd. Grant shot me a concerned look, but I just shrugged, keeping my face neutral. I could see the tension build in his shoulders. He reached for my hand and squeezed it hard, as if to reassure me. She continued, "And to think, our dear bride here used to be just a humble schoolteacher. Well, we can all agree my son has a heart of gold." Her laugh was light, but her eyes were icy. "He's never been afraid of charity." My cheeks burned. I heard a few awkward laughs from distant relatives. I tried to focus on the warmth of Grant's hand in mine, tried to remind myself we were in this together. She lifted her glass. "To my son's charity project." I felt my heart sink. After the toasts, Grant pulled me aside into a quiet corner near the courtroom. I could still hear the muted thump of music behind us. He wrapped his arms around me. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "That was uncalled for." I exhaled, leaning into his chest, letting his steady heartbeat calm me. "It's okay," I lied. "She'll come around eventually." He cradled my face. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me." Don't let her words sink in too deep. His sincerity almost broke me. Tears welled up, but I blinked them back. "We were supposed to be celebrating." "I'm trying," I said softly, "but it hurts, Grant." He kissed my forehead. "I know. I'll talk to her, I promise. She has no right to treat you like that." Before we could say more, there was a cough behind us. We both turned. My mother-in-law stood there, arms crossed, a thin smile on her lips. "Oh, don't mind me," she said. "I just wanted to see if I could steal my son for a moment." Grant's jaw tightened. "We're in the middle of something." She let out a cool laugh. "Over my dead body," she muttered under her breath. A chill ran through me. A week after the wedding, I got home from teaching a late art club at school. The apartment was calm and warm, scented with the spaghetti sauce Grant was simmering. On the kitchen counter, I noticed a glossy gift bag tied with silver ribbon. Grant walked over, drying his hands on a dish towel. "Mom dropped this off," he said flatly. "Said it was a welcome to the family gift." My heart twisted. I carefully pulled out the tissue paper. Inside was a designer handbag, one I recognized from magazines but had never considered buying. Attached was a snide little note in swirling script. "A step up from your usual. At least now you can say you own something nice." My stomach churned. I glanced up at Grant. She didn't even try to hide the insult. He rubbed my shoulder. "Just ignore her. I'm sorry she's doing this." I forced a small smile. "It's okay. I'll send her a thank you text." He frowned. "Why bother?" "Because I'm not stooping to her level," I said gently. I held up the bag. "It's beautiful, but I don't need it to feel worthy." Grant sighed. "She'll see that one day." I wasn't so sure. From the look in her eyes lately, I knew she despised me more than ever. Grant's family invited us to dinner at their home, a grand mansion in the wealthy part of town. We arrived amid perfectly trimmed hedges and pristine marble steps. I tried to calm my nerves, but the memory of my mother-in-law's barbs lingered. Inside, the dining room was set with expensive china and flickering candlelight. It smelled of rosemary, and roasted chicken. As we took our seats, his mother regarded me with a too polite smile. Halfway through the meal, she cleared her throat. "How's the little schoolmarm doing these days?" she asked, voice dripping with sarcasm. My cheeks flamed. Across the table, my father-in-law stared at his plate and Grant's brother fiddled awkwardly with his napkin. No one stood up for me. I swallowed and forced myself to stay silent. Grant pushed his chair back suddenly. "Mom, enough," he snapped. "She's my wife, not some punching bag." His voice shook with anger. She sipped her wine unconcerned. "He'll calm down," she said to no one in particular. "He always does." Grant threw his napkin onto the table. "I'm done here," he hissed, standing and tugging me gently by the hand. We left without dessert. As we walked out, I caught the triumphant smirk on her face. She wanted this fight. For our honeymoon, Grant surprised me with a trip to a cozy beach town. It wasn't a lavish resort. It was peaceful and charming. Perfect for us. The sunlight glimmered on the waves, and we spent our days collecting seashells, laughing like carefree teenagers. But even there, my mother-in-law found a way to intrude. She called constantly, leaving endless voicemails about urgent family matters. Grant ignored the first few. Then, one morning, our phones pinged with her texts over and over. He finally answered one call. I couldn't hear her side, but I could see his face tense. "Mom," he said firmly, "this is our honeymoon. Please respect that." I didn't catch her reply, but his expression went dark. "You know what? I'm blocking your number for the rest of this trip." He hung up and let out a heavy sigh. Later that day, while scrolling through messages, I saw one from my mother-in-law to a friend. She must have accidentally copied me, or maybe she didn't care. "That girl thinks she can steal my son. I'll tear her down piece by piece." My stomach knotted. Grant saw my face and asked what was wrong. I shrugged, deleted the text, and tried to bury the fear creeping into my heart. Back home from the honeymoon, I tried to act as though everything was normal. Yet every day, I felt my mother-in-law lurking in the background, snide phone calls, sideways comments, and forced smiles whenever anyone else was around. In front of others, she was sweet as sugar. My lovely daughter-in-law, she'd coo, draping an arm around my shoulders. Then, when no one was looking, she'd hiss, "You're only here because my son's too kind to see your flaws." One afternoon, I walked in to find her cornering Grant in the hallway. Her voice was low, venomous. "She's not good for you. She's beneath us." Grant's face darkened. "I'm done with this," he said, stepping back. "If this continues, we won't be seeing you for a while." She let out a dry laugh, spinning around to me. "Me? I would never. You must be imagining things." Grant turned to me, eyes pleading, wanting me to confirm what was happening, but I froze. She looked so smug, like she'd twist anything I said. He stormed off, furious, leaving her behind. She flashed me a look that said, "I always win." I felt trapped. For Grant's sake, I couldn't let her tear our marriage apart, but I didn't know how to fight her. One quiet afternoon at school, I was reviewing math tests in my classroom. My students had gone home and the halls were nearly empty. Suddenly I heard the echo of heels on the tile floor. My heart raced. Something felt off. She stood there at the door. My mother-in-law, dressed in an elegant suit, wearing an air of self-importance like a crown. Before I could greet her, she breezed right past me to the principal's office without a word. Minutes later, the principal summoned me. Inside, my mother-in-law sat in a chair, her legs crossed, a sweet, false grin on her face. "I'm just concerned," she said softly. "I want to ensure the children receive the highest standard of education. My daughter-in-law's background is so modest." My principal frowned. "She's an excellent teacher. All her reviews are outstanding." My mother-in-law shrugged, looking bored. "Well, if you say so." She exited, but not before whispering to another teacher in the hallway, "You'd think a millionaire's wife would aim higher. It's a shame." My cheeks flamed. "Millionaire's wife?" She said it like a joke. Little did she know how close she was to the truth. But for now, I just swallowed my hurt and kept my secrets safe. Grant's older brother, Aaron, asked to meet us at a nearby cafe. It had small tables and the smell of fresh espresso, a cozy place usually perfect for casual chats. But this time, the air crackled with tension. Aaron leaned in, his voice hushed. "Mom's going too far. I'm sorry you're both caught in this." He glanced around before continuing. "Dad and I confronted her. She acted like she didn't know what we were talking about, said you were turning Grant against her. Grant scoffed. She's refusing to see the harm she's causing. Aaron nodded grimly. She cried, said she's scared of losing you to some random woman. Dad said, you're lucky she even talks to you after all this. But you know how stubborn Mom is. I sipped my coffee, hands shaking slightly. I just want peace. Is that too much to ask? Aaron reached out and patted my arm gently. We're trying to get through to her. She's never been like this before. Grant shook his head. She'll ruin relationships if she keeps this up. Aaron glanced at his phone, tension lines deepening in his forehead. Honestly, it might be too late. She's not listening. I felt dread coil in my stomach. This war was far from over. That same evening, Grant and I were at his parents' house for a tense family gathering. The dining room felt like a stage, everyone playing a part. My mother-in-law sat at the head of the table, wearing a forced smile. My father-in-law cleared his throat and said, "We have an important announcement." He spoke about their real estate firm's next big venture. Something huge that could expand their influence. It was a chance, he said, for the family to work together. I tried to ignore my mother-in-law's glare burning into me. Suddenly, she turned to me. "You're a teacher? Perhaps you can contribute with your wisdom?" Her tone dripped with mockery. I stayed quiet. Grant shifted uncomfortably, refusing to rise to her bait. My father-in-law explained they needed a powerful investor. "It's critical we land someone with serious capital," he said. "We've heard whispers about a prominent newcomer, James Walker. We're hoping to make an impression." At the mention of my father's name, my heart skipped a beat. I worked hard to keep my expression neutral. I could see my mother-in-law wave her hand dismissively. "Never heard of him," she said with a sneer. She had no idea how those words would come back to haunt her. Later that night, my phone buzzed. It was my father, James Walker. He greeted me with his usual calm warmth. After asking about my well-being, he got straight to the point. "Is it time?" he asked gently. I hesitated, picturing my mother-in-law's smug face. Part of me wanted to tell him everything, let him swoop in and straighten her out. But I'd promised myself I wouldn't fight cruelty with cruelty. So I said, "Not yet, let her keep showing who she is." He didn't argue. "I trust your judgment," he said, "but don't hesitate if you need me." Before we hung up, he added, "You should know, her remarks are reaching your mother's ears too." My chest constricted. Mom had been so excited to welcome Grant into our family. The last thing she needed was this stress. After the call, I sat on our living room couch, staring at the wall. I could feel the weight of secrets pressing down on me. When Grant arrived home, he found me lost in thought. He quietly joined me, resting a hand on my shoulder. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern softening his voice. "I'm fine," I lied. Inside, I wondered how long I could keep silent. A few days later, my mother-in-law invited us to a formal dinner she was hosting. I almost declined, but Grant insisted we give her one more chance. Maybe, he said, she was trying to extend an olive branch. We arrived at their mansion, where she'd gathered a cluster of her wealthy friends. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. The smell of lobster bisque and freshly baked bread filled the room. From the moment we stepped inside, I felt like I was on display. She introduced me with a clipped smile. "This is my son's wife. She's a teacher." She paused, letting the word teacher hang in the air like a faint insult. Some guests exchanged polite smiles, but the tension was obvious. Throughout dinner, she made comments about how strange it was that someone would choose teaching over more ambitious pursuits. "Imagine," she said dramatically, "a teacher at our table." Her friends tittered, clearly unsure how to respond. Eventually, I excused myself to the restroom. My hands shook as I splashed water on my face. My phone buzzed. It was Dad again. "I've been approached by a company, her company," I texted back. "Let's see what happens." Before I could catch my breath, it was time to return to the circus. The next morning, I decided to face my mother-in-law directly. I visited her at home, alone. She opened the door with a suspicious glare. "Why are you here?" she snapped. I took a slow breath, stepping inside the grand foyer. "Please stop," I said calmly. "The constant insults, the public humiliation, it's hurting Grant more than you know. He loves you. He hates being torn between us." She crossed her arms, lips curled in a sneer. "He'll get over it. He always does." My heart clenched. Did she truly believe that? He's your son, and he's my husband, I continued, keeping my voice steady. We can be a family if you just— Just what? She interrupted, raising an eyebrow. Fall in line with your small life? No thanks. I felt my eyes burn, but I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of tears. This is going to end badly, I warned, for everyone. She smirked. Is that a threat? No, I said softly, a plea. Without another word, I turned and walked out. My chest felt tight, and by the time I got to the car, I was shaking. Grant found me there, tears sliding down my cheeks. He pulled me close. I won't let her break us, he whispered. That same week, my father called again. Your mother-in-law's company reached out for a meeting, he said, his tone laced with quiet amusement. They're looking for investors, and apparently they've heard James Walker might have deep pockets. I glanced at my reflection in our living room window. The city lights flickered against the night sky. So they don't know you're my dad? Not yet, he replied. But I'm not hiding it either. They just never asked. A slow sense of resolve built in my chest. Let them show you who they are, I said evenly. If they treat you fairly, fine. If not, that's on them. Dad was silent for a moment, then he said, You have a good heart, sweetheart. I'll schedule the meeting and keep my eyes open. After hanging up, I sat there, thinking about how quickly life can twist. My mother-in-law was so consumed by her hatred that she failed to see the irony. The wealthy investor she desperately needed was my father. She mocked me for being a teacher, never imagining my family might have real influence. I texted Dad, You have my go-ahead. He simply replied, Understood, stay strong. A few days passed, and I heard from Aaron that my mother-in-law was frantic with excitement. She's convinced if they land this James Walker, everything changes, he told me. She's doing background checks, trying to figure out how to impress him. I couldn't help the small smile that came over my face. If she'd only bothered to ask about my family, she might have learned the truth sooner. But she never asked. She never cared. She'll discover who he is eventually, I said softly. But I'm not sure how she'll handle that reality. Aaron sighed. I just hope, for all our sakes, she doesn't blow it. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law dug deeper. She discovered that James Walker was a respected businessman who had recently moved his operations to our city. Rumor had it he was worth billions. She bragged to her friends, if we land him, we'll dominate the market. No one will ever question our family's status again. Hearing her words through the grapevines stung. She was desperate for prestige, yet she'd refused to see me as anything but trash and white. The hypocrisy weighed on me. But I kept my silence, letting events march forward, one step closer to the inevitable reveal. The big night arrived. My father-in-law arranged a private dinner at an upscale restaurant to pitch their real estate venture to James Walker. The table was set with pristine linens and candles that flickered against the polished glassware. My mother-in-law was dressed to the nines, sporting designer everything, and a sudden, unfamiliar humility. Grant and I had no part in the pitch. We weren't even invited. Instead, I got a text from Dad as he arrived. I'm here. She doesn't recognize me from your wedding photos, does she? I replied. She never looked at them closely. She only cared about complaining about me. So it began. My father told me later how the conversation went. He entered the private dining room, calm and confident. My mother-in-law greeted him with a sweet smile, over the top in her flattery. They offered him wine, raved about their family values, painted a picture of success. Then he set his glass down. I don't invest in people who disrespect my family. Silence fell around the table. My mother-in-law's smile froze. She glanced at my father-in-law, confusion twisting her features. Dad's stare was cold. Is there something you'd like to confess before we proceed? In that moment, the cracks in her facade began to show. My father's account of the dinner was almost theatrical. My mother-in-law, suddenly worried, tried to laugh off his statement. We'd never disrespect your family, she insisted, her voice faltering. We pride ourselves on inclusivity. Dad let the silence drag, then leaned forward. You claim you'd never disrespect my family, but what if I told you that your daughter-in-law, my daughter, has endured nothing but cruelty from you? He described how her eyes went wide, color draining from her cheeks. Your daughter-in-law? She echoed, voice trembling. He nodded, stone-faced. My daughter, Grant's wife. You've insulted her character, belittled her career, and called her vile names. She shot a look at my father-in-law, who seemed just as stunned. Then she turned back, shaking her head. She didn't say anything. I had no idea. My father's voice was cold when he replied, "Did you ever bother asking? Did you ever treat her with respect long enough to learn her story?" "I doubt it." He set his napkin on the table. "I refuse to invest with people who treat my child like trash. This meeting is over." Her wine glass slipped from her grasp and shattered on the floor. As Dad walked out, the consequences of her actions began crashing down around her. I was at home pacing the living room when I got the call from my father. "It's done," he said, his voice tinged with sadness and finality. I walked out. "The deal is off." I heard the backstory of the dinner, how my mother-in-law tried to stammer out excuses, how my father-in-law demanded answers in front of everyone. She mumbled, "I didn't know she was wealthy," like that was the only reason to show kindness. Dad sighed. "You should have seen her face. She realizes now she might lose everything." When Grant got home, I told him the details. His jaw clenched. "She never even asked who your family was. She just assumed you had nothing." He shook his head in disbelief. The next day, rumors spread swiftly in their business circles. Word was that James Walker had pulled out. Other investors, seeing the turmoil, decided to withdraw too. My in-laws' once solid company started to tremble under the strain. Their stock prices dipped and deals fell through. Grant confronted his mother. She broke down, insisting she hadn't meant any real harm. But the damage was done. The pitch had collapsed, and so, it seemed, had her carefully crafted world of pride. The fallout was swift. Clients distanced themselves, not wanting to be associated with scandal. Reporters began digging, though no major headlines emerged, just whispers in business circles that my mother-in-law had offended the wrong person. Like investors pulled their money, uncertain about the stability of her projects. Her husband, my father-in-law, was livid. He confronted her in their ornate living room, in full view of Aaron and Grant. "How could you do this? We needed that investment," he roared. She threw up her hands, tearful. "I didn't know," she cried. "She never told us who her father was." He slammed his fist on the coffee table. "You never asked," he shot back. "All you ever did was insult her." He pointed to the door. "You might have ruined this entire family, our reputation, our future." Aaron stood by the window, silent and grim. Grant, fists clenched at his sides, stared at his mother. "You did this," he said quietly. "Not her." She turned desperately to him, tears streaming. "But you're my son. You're supposed to stand by me." Grant's voice shook with anger. "You made your bed, Mom. Now you have to lie in it." Her face went pale as she realized she was losing him too. My mother-in-law's world caved in. Her investors vanished. My father-in-law, bitter and furious, packed a suitcase and left. Aaron distanced himself, focusing on his own life. Grant refused to take his mother's calls after her countless manipulations. And I made no move to comfort her. She tried to show up at our apartment, sobbing at the door, begging Grant to give her another chance. He wouldn't even let her in. I stood behind him, heart pounding. I never imagined relishing another person's despair, but part of me felt relief that she could no longer hurt us. Her voice cracked through the wood of the door. "Please, I'm still your mother. Let me talk to you." Grant's eyes were cold. "After everything you've done?" "No." She pounded on the door, wailing. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean..." I took a breath and spoke, voice steady. "You'll never be welcome near my family again," I said softly but firmly. "Not while you show so little respect for the people who love you." Eventually, she left, her footsteps echoing down the hallway. I placed my hand on Grant's shoulder. He was trembling. It was a sorrowful moment, one that changed everything forever. Weeks passed. My mother-in-law's once bustling mansion grew eerily silent. The housekeeper quit, the gardener stopped coming, and unpaid bills stacked up on the marble foyer table. The classical music that used to echo through the halls was replaced by total stillness. She wandered the empty rooms alone. She took down family photos, too haunted by the smiles frozen in the frames. Each image reminded her of what she'd lost. She tried calling her husband, but he changed his number. Aaron refused to see her. Grant ignored her messages. Some nights, she'd sit in the dimly lit living room, playing old voicemails of her own voice. There was one where she hissed, "I'll tear her down piece by piece." Listening to it now, she heard the venom in her tone, the arrogance in each syllable. Friends who once adored her fancy parties and social connections no longer bothered to check in. The family business was practically in ruins, leaving her with looming debts she never thought she'd have to face. Each day, she found herself more isolated. No matter where she turned, there was no comfort. The echoes of her own bitterness were the only company she had left. One morning, a certified letter arrived at our doorstep. I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from my mother-in-law. I turned it over and over in my hands, my stomach twisting with dread. Grant watched silently, arms crossed. Inside was a long, handwritten apology. She wrote how she regretted everything, her words, her attitude, her assumptions. She claimed she was desperate to repair our relationship, even begging for another chance. Grant read it over my shoulder, breathing heavily. When we finished, he took the letter, folded it, and slipped it back into the envelope. "What do you want to do?" I asked, my voice tight with emotion. He hesitated, then gave a firm shake of his head. "She's sorry now because she has nothing left, not because she changed." He held up the envelope. "I'm returning it to sender." I felt a pang of guilt, but also a wave of calm. I remembered all the times I tried to extend kindness, to meet her halfway. Each time she'd stomped on my heart. We placed the letter in the mailbox, marked "Return to Sender." I knew she'd receive it back, unopened, and realize we were done listening. Sometimes, silence is the only answer left. Word got around that my mother-in-law was truly down on her luck. Her sister, Marianne, visited her once and shared the story later. The mansion was nearly empty, many belongings sold to cover debts, and the utility bills barely paid. Marianne told me, her expression grave. She asked for help, but I told her the truth. "You've lost everything, and you deserved it." I felt a twist in my chest hearing that. I never set out to destroy her life. My father only pulled out of the deal because he refused to work with someone so cruel. Everything else was just the natural fallout of her choices. One afternoon, Marianne called me again. "She's asking to see your children, says she wants to meet her grandchildren." My heart pounded. We had no kids yet, but we hoped to soon. Still, my mind flashed forward, imagining what kind of influence she'd have. Grant overheard and simply said, "No, never again." I relayed the message. Marianne sighed. I figured. Our final ties were cut. Whatever future we might have shared died under the weight of her own arrogance and hatred. She was a woman left with only regrets and no family. Years later, I'm still teaching. My classroom is my sanctuary. Its walls are lined with colorful art projects, and my desk is piled with handwritten thank you notes from students who discovered a love for learning. Sometimes, people ask why I don't just stop working if I don't need the money. But teaching isn't about money. It's about purpose. When the bell rings, children burst out laughing, running into the hallway. I gather my things, smiling at the sheer joy echoing around me. Then I glance at the framed photo on my desk. Me, wearing a silly grin, surrounded by my students during a field trip. That memory warms my heart more than any mansion ever could. Grant walks in, balancing our baby daughter in his arms while our older child scampers ahead. "Mommy," he calls, waving a piece of construction paper he made in art class. I grin and kneel down to meet him. Grant sets the baby's car seat on my desk. He leans in, kissing my forehead. "Ready to go home?" he asks gently. I catch a reflection of my nameplate, Mrs. Walker Grant, 3rd grade, and feel a swell of gratitude. I lock the classroom door, take one last look, and whisper, "Yes, let's go." Outside, the sun is bright, life is good. Our small family gathers in our cozy backyard one late afternoon. My parents, Dad, James Walker, and Mom, sit together on the wooden bench, watching as my kids chase bubbles across the lawn. The air smells of fresh cut grass. Grant stands beside me, his arm around my waist, his eyes content. Dad raises a small toast with a gentle smile. "To my daughter, who showed us all that grace doesn't need a spotlight. She built her own life and protected it with everything she had." Emotions well up in me. I step away from the noise for a moment, the soft laughter of my children echoing. In a small notebook I keep for journaling, I scribble a thought. I never had to humiliate her. I never had to scream. All I did was stay still and let her destroy herself. A neighbor pokes his head over the fence, making friendly small talk. "Did you hear? Your mother-in-law's old house is up for sale. Looks like she's moving." I offer a polite nod, but say nothing. Yes, she lost everything. She is alone now. Maybe I'll forgive her someday, but not today. I tuck my notebook away and rejoin my family, watching my kids run barefoot in the grass. This is my life, built on love, not hate. I'd choose it again every single time.